And we have breaking news this hour. Toxicology reports in the hot car death are back, and we're finding out no drugs were found in little Cooper Harris's system. So many had wondered, okay, was he drugged, sedated in some way before he was left in the car? So toxicology reports negative at this point. So that's a big detail in this case. We're also finding out mom there, Leanna Harris, the wife of Ross Harris, has hired a lawyer. We have to point out she's not been arrested, not been named a suspect, but authorities say she is a part of the investigation. And this story we continue to talk about and share with each other. And you go on Facebook. There are Facebook pages popping up just to talk about this case. There's a Facebook page just about the trial itself. There's a Facebook page really focusing in on Leanna Harris. You can search around Twitter as well, as this conversation is popping up in so many places. And we're going to zone in on Facebook because you guys have gone to our Facebook page and posed some incredible questions. Take a look behind me here as we look at this board. And that's just a sampling of all the different questions. And we've combed through them and picked out kind of some of the main themes. Philip Holloway back with us. He's an attorney, former investigator as well, and has worked in Cobb County. So you're here to help us with some of these. Again, and these are questions we've talked about as people keep bringing the main issues back to the surface. Let's hit them here. We've got Sheila asking this question. Why did he buy a new car seat only to switch it to one he outgrew? That right there is suspicious. And let's point out here before Philip, you answer, and it was pointed out in the probable cause hearing, that because once you're thinking of a 22-month-old in a rear-facing car seat, although doctors or pediatricians say, yeah, that's a good thing, he was too big for the seat. So that's suspicious, isn't it?
Well, it is suspicious in the eyes of many, and what we know in Georgia is that it's recommended that children be facing to the rear until they're 24 months old, and of course he was only 22 months old. The idea that he may have been too large for this infant seat, that is also something that's very suspicious in the eyes of many, and these are things that I think the investigators are going to be looking at very closely in this case.
And those are the kind of things won't get you convicted in a court of law. Parents out there saying, of course you're going to go with the newest car seat that fits your child the best, but this isn't going to rear up a conviction, right? Not
in and of itself. And again, it goes back to the context. You've got to look at you can't take one little piece of evidence and look at it by itself. You've got to look at the big picture. This is just one little piece of the puzzle here. We got to see the big picture.
Okay. Another great question coming to us from Judy on Facebook. Were Justin and his wife accustomed to communicating by phone or text regularly during the day? Did they communicate at all the day that Cooper died? And that's key, right?
It is. What we learned at the probable cause hearing is that they're going through all of the electronics with a fine-tooth comb. The investigator stated they've only scratched the surface. We know that the search warrants have been executed and that they're going through the forensics on those things right now. So these are questions that will be answered. I think one thing that was testified to at the probable cause hearing, if my memory serves correctly, was that there was one text between them that day when Mr. Harris said to Ms. Harris, when are you going to come pick up my buddy, or something to that effect.
And what has, again, red flags for so many is the actual conversations or things that Leanna Harris said to Ross Harris in the police interrogation room. Let's get to another question. Again, this one coming to us from Joanne. When the father gets in the car to go home, did he not smell death? Because we learned the sad fact, again, at that probable cause hearing, medical examiner estimates that little Cooper was dead by noon, by lunchtime.
Right. And the investigators said that the officers on scene and others noticed a definite odor, to say the least, at the time that the driver pulled over, that the father pulled over with the car. So that is a question. Now, there have been unconfirmed reports that perhaps he may have had some problem with his sense of smell. And we saw earlier this week that the police have got search warrants for his medical history, Mr. Harris's, as well as Cooper's. And undoubtedly, that's something that they're going to be looking into.
Yeah, and isn't that interesting? You know, and you as an investigator, I'm sure, pick up on this before we do as laymen, but that, you know, we hear the detail, okay, at lunchtime, he kind of spearheads a shopping spree where he buys some light bulbs. Right. And, you know, it's like, why are you buying light bulbs? And that's part of the investigation, to check the supply of light bulbs in the house to see if they really need them.
From what we know from the search warrants, they went back to the house to see did, in fact, they need light bulbs at the house, and did they need that kind of light bulb? You know, they're trying to either corroborate or disprove the statements that he made, because that's going to be the key. Was he telling the truth, or was he not telling the truth? And that's why they're having to chase down each one of these leads.
There you go. And, you know, because the inference there is you didn't need light bulbs. You were just opening the car to check on the progress of your devious plot. If that if the investigators are going that way. Let's get one last question in here. This one from Rebecca. Did the dad park in a different place than his usual spot on the day his son died? And I guess they're going to use that same surveillance video to check that out. And it's interesting to note that parking spot, how he backs into it, and with a rear-facing car seat, it would be difficult to see little Cooper back there.
Right. That's the implication that they certainly presented at the preliminary hearing. What they painted was this picture that suggested an intentional malicious act. In and of itself, like I said, it goes back to the context. The investigators are going to have to track down that detail. Was this where he normally parked, or did he go out of his way to park somewhere else?
All right. Philip, again, great work here. And great work, you guys. You guys have great questions. You see a slew of them here. We'll take more of your questions via phone. I'll take your calls, 1-877-TEL-HLN. We'll do that in the 2 o'clock hour. You can go to our Facebook page, post great questions there. Tweet us, tweet me, @MichaelAnosHLN.